Thank you. Yeah. So in the interest of time, because we have multiple groups that will be presenting today, we're going to jump right into it. Do we have any group here that has all of their presenters already logged in?
Yes.
Okay. Abiodun, okay, that was Abiodun. Okay. So Abiodun, we'll go with your team first, and next we'll go with Bumi's team, and then we'll work down the rest of the teams, okay?
All right.
Awesome. Start when you're ready. Thank you.
All right. Can we see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, right. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Abiodun Ajibose, and I'm presenting on behalf of my wonderful team and the business analysts we have at Violent Home Healthcare. We've seen the status quo presently, and we felt there's need to make a change to the current state, which has really led to dissatisfaction among the caregivers, and also the environment is really not conducive for the patient. And as BA, we have looked at the current state, and we have put it in a visual app so that we could all see the diagrammatic expression. And this an ability for both non-technical audience to really understand the current state of the organization. And we could see that when we start as caregivers, when the caregivers arrive at work, their temperature is checked. And when it is not okay, they are sent home and the process ends. And when the temperature is okay, they log in into the manual group. And after that, they check roster. Everything is done manually on the notice board. And this goes straight to the assigned patient. They assign the patient to look after and check them out. And they review the patient's care. Everything is done manually. You imagine an healthcare staff going about with hard covers and board, going around marking and all the stuffs. And we could all see the process is not really automated, and lot of ambiguity in terms of reporting and inefficient data collection. And they report to the supervisor via manually. The supervisor also reports to the nurse. At times it's done on the system, but it's really not really efficient in terms of work reporting and the process. So the nurse check the patient, and they check the symptoms. When it's yes, they call 911, and the process ends. If it's no, they not treat the patient. What we could see in a nutshell is all this is done manually, and that has caused a large turnover of caregivers. We have people resigning because they are not really satisfied. The work is done is ambiguous, and we felt, of course, as BA, we've seen the current state, and that's what we're presenting it in a diagrammatic expression. And we felt we could do it better by taking this current state to a future state. And I'll just show the future state right away. I believe you can see this process. Yeah, and this is the future state. What really changes, we wanted a smooth and satisfactory and enabling environment for caregivers where they could do things at ease without cumbersomeness in the way of their reporting. So when they come in and the caregiver arrive at work, normally they check their temperature, because this is an healthcare industry. You need to be okay before you treat those who are patients. And after doing that, they check their temperature. When the temperature is okay, they log in to the mobile app, which was the introduction of the new system we're trying to put in place for the caregiver satisfaction and their reporting. So after they log on the mobile app, this is reviewed. They review the patient care plan on the mobile app, no more on the manual paper. And when that is done, they carry out the patient activity. And when that is done, all this is reported on the app. Patient activity is okay. And if it's okay, they report to the nurse via the mobile app. Instead, before the current state was you have to go to the nurse office and talk to her. But now the mobile app is there, where all the nurses, those on duty, those who are not on duty, could see it vividly, and they know what is happening. There's any cause for the supervisor or the managers to make input, all the input will be made on the mobile app instead of just going and reporting physically and all this stuff. So this is what we've been able to put in place. And when the temperature is okay, when it's not okay, assign employee to a nurse. The nurse assess employee's symptoms. If symptoms are serious, they send them to emergency room and they go home. And another important thing is that when you report on manual app, on the mobile app to the nurse also receive this notification on the app, which she also could attend to. And from there, if the condition is serious, if it's not, the nurse treats the patient and the process ends. And if the condition is serious, then we call 911, which is the emergency service. In all this, we could see that we're able to identify the performance gap between the current state and the future state. And this future state has helped the organization for us to promote a high efficient healthcare practice. And also we've been able to increase the caregivers' motivation and their work attitude. And also the future state has also helped us to automate the system and standardize the process. So this is what we've been able to do for home health care service, and so that there'll be work satisfaction by both the client and the patient will be, of course, will be happy with the service we are rendering. And this will really reduce the frequent resignation of healthcare providers. And also, if our system is automated, then we could have staff coming in, and our process is modern. And if we have any standard organization to be able to audit our process, they will say that, yes, we're really current, and outdated and obsolete way of reporting and inefficient data collection and storage is thereby eradicated. And, that's the essence why we've been able to see the gap between the current state and the future state. Thank you so much. I think I will call on my colleague down to be able to take us through the next slide. Thank you so much.
Who's coming up next?
I think it's down.
Yes, I believe I was supposed to come in next. I apologize. I was having issue logging in, so I'm a little. So I'm showing the user story and acceptance criteria that we were asked to prepare. Give me a moment, please. I'm trying to turn on my camera, but I don't think, okay, there it is. Okay. Okay. Great. So this is, I believe we were asked to show the user story and acceptance criteria in a Word document as well as on Jira. So I was able to put together about 4 user stories and just a few acceptance criteria for each one of them. Some of them have only one. So for the first user story, I imputed as a registered user, I want to be able to log in with my username and password to access my profile. And an example of an acceptance criteria that would come with that would be, given that I am a registered caregiver, when I impute my username and password, then I should be able to access my profile. And then I also have, when I put in the wrong password or username, the system should display wrong username or password. I didn't want to go on and on because I feel like this user story will probably have a host of acceptance criteria if we go deeper. And then I explored the next user story. As a credentialed user, I want to be able to create profiles for other employees to satisfy the notion that management should have the option to be able to have the ability to be able to onboard people onto the app on the back end, so that they have a profile that they can register to. And for the acceptance criteria, I put in that given that I am a credentialed user, when I impute a new employee's information, then they should have a profile created in the system for them. The third user story, as a user, I want to be able to change my password on the login page. And then the acceptance criteria that I was able to put down for that one is, given that I am a registered user, when I log in to view my profile page, then I should be able to view the option. I should be able to view the option to change password. And then for the next one, the fourth user story, as a user, I want to be able to update my personal information. And for the acceptance criteria for that one, I put in, given that I'm a user, when I view my profile, then I should be able to see an edit option next to my personal information. Then I went ahead to impute that in Jira. So I have the Epic as development of a caregiver app. Give me a moment to see if I can give this a different screen. Let me see. All right, so I believe I was able to do that. So I have the Epic as a development of caregiver app, and then I have the user stories underneath as the, I imputed those user stories into this, and I inserted the acceptance criteria in the comment.
Don, are you showing us Jira? Because we can't see it.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I don't know why this. Give me a moment. It says you're sharing the screen, so
You can stop sharing and try again.
Reshare again. Yeah.
Give me a second, please. I apologize. Okay, are we good?
Yeah.
Can everybody see it? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just gonna backtrack a little. So I have the Epic as development of the caregiver app, and then I have about the 4 user stories that I had in the Word document earlier imputed in, and then for each user story, I have the criterias in the comments that I saved as well. So I can go through all of them and just I believe that was all that was asked to be completed.
Okay,
All right.
so is it all done?
Yes.
Is that okay? Good, awesome. So let's quickly just go over a few items before we have the second group present. So thank you, group one. Thank you for leading tonight, being the first to present, and thank you for the effort you put into it. I know that the journey's been long, and yeah, we've covered a lot. Third presentation, so it's a lot to do. But just a few things I wanted to quickly talk about. For your process map, we had asked that you include a narrative, right? I don't know if you had that tonight, but you just didn't present it. But Abiodun went straight into the process map. And so in your actual documentation, a good practice would be have the narrative, which is the written story, and then have the map that would accompany it. Like if you actually had the narrative, you put the narrative first, and then you'd put the map would follow. Is there any reason why you didn't have a narrative tonight? Abiodun and Donna, I'll put you on the spot because you're the two who presented.
Yeah, we have the narrative. Yeah, it was just
Oh, you have.
Yeah, we have the narrative. Yeah, that was what we.
So you know how when I sent out my example, right, what we mapped out in class, I had a narrative, like a line by line, saying what had happened, and then I had the map. So that narrative, that line by line text.
Oh, we do have that. I didn't know that we were asked to include it because it's not in the.
We were asked
to. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I can double check. Not that it matters anyway, but since you have it, that's what matters. Okay. It's okay. No, I just thought you didn't have it, so I wanted to mention, that you always want to have that accompany your process map, basically.
That was the step we used to draw the
yeah, exactly, because that's usually the starting point. You have the narrative, and then you start mapping out the narrative, right? So otherwise, it'd be really difficult to just jump into mapping.
Have it, of course. That's what we used to map. Yeah.
Okay, good then. One thing I liked, just even by listening to the presentation over 15 minutes, right, was that I looked at the picture of the current state and the future state. Obviously, I didn't analyze it. It's not a long time, but I could tell that the future state was a whole lot shorter. And that's what you see with a lot of, maybe it's a business process improvement, whatever the reason why we're doing the current state, right, is that the future state is usually cleaner because you would have introduced maybe automation in there, you'd have converted a lot of manual processes into the system being able to handle it. So, the end to end, beginning to end, like some people would call it, it's usually shorter. It's usually cleaner. And I could tell just by looking at your diagrams, even though I didn't necessarily go into the detail of it, that tells me that you did something right there. Okay, of course, I mean, it's not in every case that shorter means better because maybe someone omitted key parts of the flow, right? But the point being, when you map out a current state and a future state, the difference should be glaring. We should be able to tell. And sometimes it may be the same length, but if we go into the detail of it, we can see how much more value has been embedded into the future state, basically. Okay. About the user stories, I felt like a bit more could have been done there. I was actually really looking forward to a detailed acceptance criteria. The reason being, one of the reasons we're doing this today is to do, role play. You're already working as a B and you're working on a project. And so if they say, write a user story with acceptance criteria, right, you go the full length of it and write the entire acceptance criteria. That's what we're hoping to see tonight. But I'll still share that feedback with you anyway. If you're presenting a user story, right, we've said it, severally. Just imagine that we're like the executive team or your stakeholder group and you're presenting to us, right? If that user story, the way you've documented it, was given to developers, right, it's not going to meet the definition of done. Okay, because we all know that passwords require a certain level of complexity depending on the organization. There's many different things that go into username and passwords. There's some organizations where the username is going to be an email address and it has to be unique to every individual. So it's never as easy for good systems anyway. It's never as simple as, input my username and password so that I can access the system, right? So a bit more effort there would have been great, but most importantly, I hope you get the message that I'm trying to pass across. In addition to that, right, the 3 key components of a user story, always think about it when you're writing. Who's the actor? What are they trying to do? And what is the benefit? So a lot of the user stories that were shown tonight did not talk about the benefit, talked about the actor and the action, but not the benefit. So the part that says so that, as a new customer, I want to be able to do ABC, so that, right? Because that's how we measure the benefit. And that was missing for most of the user stories. Your first user story actually had it. It didn't exactly say so that, but I could see that you made that effort there to have all 3 components of a user story in there. But for the other ones, it did not have that. Okay. That's all the feedback that I have. Does any other person on the call have feedback for the first group that presented? Okay. If that's a no, Abiodun, Dawn, and the rest of your group, do you have any questions about any of my comments?
No, really. Thank you so much for the feedback. That's appreciated. Thank you so much.
Awesome, and thank you. Thank you again for putting in the effort to do that, to do the work. Thank you to all of your team. Bumi, we're ready for your group.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, can you see my face?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Abiola, and I'll be talking on the process mapping for our company Runway. But before doing that, I'll just I will talk slightly on the narrative process. So based on our previous pain points, we do have some steps here under our narrative part. So the first one says customer logs into, well, we do have 2 actors. Sorry about that. We have 2 actors. That's the system and the customer. So customer logs into profile. Yes, if it's successful. No, if it's unsuccessful. Customer clicks on the image. Customer redirected to different page. If it's yes, successful. If no, there will be a redirection. Customer clicks on item. Image loads up. Customer selects product details. Customer adds to carts. Cart times out. Customer restarts ordering. And then we have the end. So that would be our narrative, which is the very first part of our presentation. And now I can move on to the mapping process. So we were able to use a tool called the Visio to map out all the processes. And as we all know, the main purpose of mapping process is to foster a formal approach to quality management. And as a business analyst, the process mapping is a crucial one as this helps streamline processes. I would also like to talk about a few benefits of the process mapping. So process mapping helps identify flaws in the processes and where improvements should be made. It also makes understanding and communicating the processes much easier amongst team members, stakeholders, or customers. And lastly, let's not forget about the end goal for any organization or company using a process mapping. Their end goal is to make sure that the whole process is more effective and efficient. So let's quickly take a look at our current state mapping process. Okay. So firstly, we always have to start with the start object, the start icon. And the process starts from where the customer logs into the site. So if the login was unsuccessful, the system directs the customer back to the login page. However, if the login is successful, then the customer can proceed to the runway site page. So customer searches for image and select item of choice. If the image was unsuccessfully loaded, then it takes the customer to the search image. If loaded successfully, then customer is able to proceed to select item and add to cart. So if the item added to cart weren't saved, then it directs customer back to the site page. However, if the items added to cart were saved, then customer can proceed to the checkout button as a user. And of course, this brings us to it brings the whole process to an end. I would like to call my other colleague, Temitope, to put us through on her future state process mapping. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you, Abiola. So just like she said, I'll just try to reiterate. We're quite aware of.
Temitope, 1 second. Are you turning on your camera?
No, I didn't have plans to, but
no pressure. If you're not in a state to turn it on, that's okay. We did have an agreement that we would, but
yeah, I know.
Okay. I think we all understand. It's okay. Go ahead, please.
Okay, give me 1 moment. All right, give me 1 moment. This is the. Can I have the? Can I have the? The narrative or the what?
That's the narrative there on the screen.
Oh, okay. For the future states.
Yes, please. Yes, yes.
Okay, no worries then. Let me turn on my camera. Oh, okay. Now I see. Thank you. Thank you. Now I get what you're saying. Okay, so we know that in the previous state, the customer had to go through a lot of issues trying to navigate to the checkout page. And like Abiola walked us through the map, most of the times the customer is unsuccessful. But in the future state, we want the ordering process to be very seamless, where from the word go, from the start, once the customer, geez, I'm so sorry, I have my son here, so I'm a little bit distracted. So yeah, so from the word go, when the customer starts their ordering process, visits the website, we want for them to be able to view the image of interest. Once they click on the item, the image should load, the image loads up, and the customer selects the product details that the product details of the item of interest. After they are done, they add this to cart, and the cart doesn't time out on them. Should they decide to go about, to keep on shopping after adding some items to cart, the items in the cart do not time out. They're still there all through the shopping experience of the customer. And once the customer is decided on all the items of interest added to cart, the customer then has the option to either log in if the customer is a returning customer, or as a new customer decides to just check out as a guest. Either way, whether the customer wants to log in or decide to check out as the guest, the customer is able to do this seamlessly, and this ends the process. So I will be walking us through the this process in the future states. So what you can see here is the ordering process solution in the future, where our customers are able to start their ordering process. As you can see, the process starts with the customer when they visit the site. Now, the customer is able to search on the search box, for the item of interest. This is successful. The customer clicks on their image. Now, you can see on there, image loaded, yes. The customer selects the product details, and this includes, the size, the color, all of this seamlessly. The customer is happy with their choice. They add to cart. Once this is done, the customer proceeds to checkout, decides to either log in or check out as a guest. And then the customer chooses their preferred method of payment. In our previous states, we have very limited payment options. But in this future state, that has been taken care of. Whichever payment method is preferred by the customer does seamlessly choose theirs, enters their payment details, their payment method is accepted, and that ends the process. Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna invite my colleague Bumi to take. Oh geez, I apologize.
It's okay. Don't put yourself under pressure. It's okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Temitope. I don't know. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, nice. Okay. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Thanks for being part of this presentation. So after the elicitation and gathering of our requirements from our stakeholders, we prioritized our requirements using the Moscow principles. So we were able to sieve our requirements into the must-haves, the could-haves, the should-haves, and the won't-haves. So now we have the task of communicating this requirements to our development team. We have our EPIC, our high-level requirements, which is the ordering process, as you can see on my screen. So we're able to extract our user stories, and we added the relevant acceptance criteria to help create a detailed test plans and test data. So since we have to organize and chunk our work into units that represent value to our customers, and also to sort what is extremely valuable from what is less important, we decided to visualize our work to easily see what is to be done, what is being done, and what is yet to be done. So we represented our work through user stories that describe what our users would, or our users' world would look like in order to mark our story as being completed. So we ensured that our user stories are well written from our users' perspective. So emitting the requirements we documented. Runway, our company, is currently using the adaptive methodology, which we discussed already extensively during our business case presentation. So using Agile for our projects as Runway has really helped to improve our business value tremendously. So our highest priority is to satisfy our customers through the early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So importantly, working software is a primary measure of our progress. So we need to organize and track our work in a way that it will help achieve our business goal. So at Runway, Jira is an important collaborative tool we use to organize our work. So before I go on Jira, so I kind of documented the user stories on Word, but I think we'll have more visual picture when I go on Jira. So I'll just quickly go on Jira now. Just give me 1 second. So I don't know, can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, nice. So we documented our user stories and the acceptance criteria on Jira. So, and we ranked our user stories and the assignment of task to each team members. So we have user story 1. Currently, we don't have any item in our product backlog because we have an active sprint. So we have a sprint that is already currently running. So we don't have any user stories in our, or any items in our product backlog. So our user story 1, sorry, 1 second. So currently we have 5 user stories, and their attendant or relevant acceptance criteria in an active sprint. So we do not have any, like I said earlier, we don't have any item in our product backlog, but just going to move this. Okay, yeah. So our user story 1 says that as a customer, I want to be able to log in so that I can purchase an item or purchase items. So we have relevant acceptance criteria that go with it, which says that given that I am a customer, when I put in my login details, then I can purchase an item or purchase items. Also, homepage should contain login account tab. The homepage should contain a page of different items. The homepage should also request user authentication. The second user story, as a customer, I want to view product images so that I can choose whatever I want to purchase. Acceptance criteria are, given that I am a customer, when I use my preferred payment method, then I can complete my purchases. The homepage should also contain various payment methods. The homepage should display items saved and total amount to be debited. The homepage should include purchased tracking information. So the third one, which we considered as high, we gave it high priority. It's as a customer, I want to be able to view all my selected products in the cart so that I can make payments. Given that I am a customer, when I save all my selected items in the cart, then I can make the payments. The homepage should contain a view item page. The homepage should contain a saved item page. The homepage should also have the homepage should have a payment button. Sorry about that. So we also have this, as a customer, I want to be able to use the guest checkout so that I do not have to create an account. Given that I am a new customer, when I select guest checkout option, then I can be directed to the payment session. The homepage should contain a proceed to checkout tab. It should have a guest checkout option. The homepage should have a billing address information page. And lastly, we have a fifth user story that says, as a customer, I want to be able to use my preferred payment methods so that I can complete my purchases. Given that I am a customer, when I use my preferred payment method, then I can complete my purchases. The homepage should contain various payment methods. The homepage should display items saved and total amount to be debited. The homepage should include purchased tracking information. So as being displayed on my screen, user story 1 is ranked as is being given the highest priority, as it is essential for our customers to log in before they can interact with the system at all. Hence, all login issues need to be fixed first. So I would pass on now to Victoria, who will be talking about our sprint creation, activities in the current sprint, and the progress that is being made in our current sprint. So she would also conclude the presentation. Thank you. So over to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Bumi. So I'm going to talk over the process of the sprint that we have. So as we know that we have our epic already, and it's broken down into 5 user stories, and these 5 user stories are already assigned to each member in our team, which is 5 team members. We also gave ourselves a time limit of 3 weeks, which is what we all agreed that we would be able to have enough time to go through the process from the beginning to the end. So once the user story and priority levels are assigned, each of the user story was dropped to the to-do section. And as we can see, we currently have 3 user stories on the to-do section because these user stories haven't been started on yet. And we have 2 user stories on the in-progress section, which means that these 2 user stories are already in progress. They've already been started. They already worked on currently. So once each team has already finished working on their user story and they feel like everything is complete, they can move it on to the QA testing. But we also have a blocker section right there. And this section will only be used if something is blocking the user story from being worked on during the sprint process. For example, a dependency on another team or a change in priority. So if there's any of those blockers, it means that that particular user story is not able to move to the next section because it's not complete. And it's either depending on a team member to finish working on something on his user story before that particular user story can be, before we can continue working on the user story. So once we have finished working on the user stories, then each team member can move the user story to the QA testing. And at the QA testing section, this is for the quality assurance team, and they will be testing the product and validate that the new features were all implemented as expected, and also to catch any defects at all. Once everything has passed at the QA testing process level, then the user stories can be moved over to the UAT testing. And at this point, this is where the quality assurance, this is where the quality assurance testing, I'm sorry, not the quality assurance, but this is where the user acceptance testing process will take place. And this is where the product, because now it's already a software or a product that has already been created. So this is where the product owner is going to validate that all the requirements needed and all the requirements necessary are met before the sprint is considered done. So once everything is done and everyone is happy with the product or the software, then this is where we can carry on with the retrospective meeting. And at this point, we are going to evaluate the success of the sprint. And at this point, we're also going to answer our 3 questions, which are what went well. We want to know how, like, everything that went well during this sprint. We also want to identify what did not go well, so we can also be better in the next sprint that we will be having. And then we're also going to ask ourselves, what are the required areas of improvement, if any, that we need to carry on our next target? Thank you.
Awesome. Well done, Group 2. Yeah, that was an excellent presentation. I liked a lot of the lingo that you threw out there. Like, you know, that is really excellent. You know, when you talk like that, people just listen more. They're more attentive, right? You went above and beyond, and thank you for that. A lot of, you know, some of the things that you talked about tonight, you're not necessarily going to go into that level of detail if you were doing a real life presentation, but at least it did create the impression that you completely understand what we're doing here, and you've been able to present it. Especially with Jira, right? You really went in depth, right? You showed us the layout, you showed us where your story is at, how much work has been done and what the plan is for, the future of those user stories, right? And you really spend time explaining it, and it shows to me that you understand it, and that's really good. So, I mean, you even put the user stories in a sprint. Nobody would be able to say you just started learning Jira. You sound like you're pros, and if anybody asked you what your Jira skill is, if you said proficient, you wouldn't be lying. That's my opinion. Okay. A few things I wanted to mention about your map. If you go back to your current state map.
Victoria, can you share the map, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Again, like even the map, and just with group 1 as well, right? The maps were really well done. I thought that group 1, well, let me say the first group to present did an excellent job with both maps as well. And the same goes for your group. What I wanted to mention about your map though is that this is your current state. Can you show the future state? So for your future state, looks like your decision diamonds, right? The diamonds, you didn't document it well. The first one, you have a yes coming out of it, but there is no coming out of it. You can't have a yes without a no. Okay, and then for the second diamond, you didn't even have a yes or a no. So this is very incomplete because we can't tell what would happen in a positive or negative scenario. For the first diamond, we can tell because you have the arrow for yes, right? But you don't have the arrow for no. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. If you go back to the current state map, let's go to that one for a second. Yeah, so for the current state map, this is just a recommendation to help you have cleaner diagrams, right? Look at the box where you have search image, right? You have a total of 3 arrows going into, a total of 2 arrows going into that box, right? And you have 1 coming out of it. What I typically do if I have multiple arrows, either going into or coming out of a box, right? And what I'm about to say is just from a look perspective, right? It's not whether it is correct or wrong the way you've mapped it, just from how does it look. If you have multiple arrows coming out, going in or coming out, try to utilize the real estate you have. Let each arrow take a side. Don't have 2 arrows on one side. So what I mean is the search image box, right? At the bottom of the box, you have 2 arrows going into it. The first arrow could have gone in through the left, faced the left. I'm trying to demonstrate what I'm saying here. But anyway, the point being there are 4 sides to that box, right? If you have 3 arrows, 2 going in, 1 coming out, use an arrow let each arrow have its own side. Don't put 2 arrows in on one side. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, it's just one of the ways that I clean up my work. I find that it makes it look better. I know that you didn't have a ton of time to prepare this, and given how much time you had, you did excellently. You did really well. Same for group 1, right? But just something to keep in mind for the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's all I have. Does anybody on the call have anything to say to groups 1 and 2? Okay, no, looks like we have. Okay, go ahead, Odi.
Oh, what I just wanted to mention is what you said about the process flow, and that's okay. I apart from that, they did excellently well in all the areas, but the process flow was just what I wanted to talk about, which you've already addressed. So that's
Okay.
fine.
Awesome. Thank you, Odi. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so group 3. Whose group is that?
We will share.
Okay, Odi, is that your group?
Yes, that's Kachi's group.
Okay, Kachi's group. Okay.
All right. So good evening, everyone. Sorry, good morning. It's 2:50 a.m. here. So I'm just going to share my screen so I can start our presentation. Sometimes this is not just helping me to. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be a follow-up from our business case presentation. My name is Odunola. So I like the OD short form, so it's okay to address me as OD. So yes, before I just dive into the process flow, I'm just going to just speak briefly about our narrative. So we are into what's it called now? Into well-being, in taking care of people with regards to food business and the likes. So we discussed about our pain points, as which is actually affecting the procurement unit. So however, this narrative is just going to take us through the vendor application down to how the procurement process is like. It's a whole lot. It's just to actually put this forward to us. So it's just talking about how the business comes up with a need and then requests for a vendor to apply for the need within the business. And if there's an existing vendor, then we can proceed with the application. However, if it's not, we have to call for vendors to come up in. So once that process is completed, then we dive into the procurement life cycle. Because it's a long process, we have actually broken it down into sub-processes. So we have the vendor registration process and the procurement life cycle. So please let me know if you can still see my screen so I can just go on into the vendor process, the vendor registration current process. Can everybody see this map? Vendor registration process assist. Okay, so we have 3 swim lanes. This is just to put it into, pictorial format for easy understanding of what we are into as a business. So if you can see the first swim lane, the business will start to request for a need. And that's where you have the activity box talking about send an internal request. So we have the vendor management team who is going to be receiving this request to call for vendor application. And then we have to go into a decision to check if we have an existing vendor that can meet the need. So if it's a yes, it goes into the sub-process of the procurement life cycle, which Kachi will be taking us through. So if there is no existing vendor, then the vendor comes to apply to register as a vendor. And then the vendor management team takes this up to record and obviously document the vendor details, after which the vendor receives a notified email of the successful registration, which then goes on into the vendor management team evaluating the vendor's registration again. And then once the registration is done, is successful, then the process ends. So that's about how our current vendor onboarding process looks like. So like I said, it's a long process. I'm just going to take us through the to-be process, which is what we are seeing at the moment. So we proposed that we needed to implement a CRM application for this to actually help us have a good record data of our vendors so that we can manage them closely. So the process starts as the same through sending an internal request while the vendor management team takes up to call for a vendor application. So if there is an existing vendor, it goes into the procurement lifecycle, like I said, and if there is none, vendor still applies. Now, what is different is the CRM now captures the vendor records At the same time, we have the CRM having the capacity to send a notification email of a successful registration. The vendor receives a notification before it used to be the vendor management team sending through this an email, after which the vendor team evaluates the application. Sorry, I'm just being stuttered here. So when the vendor management team evaluates the application, it registers, and then finally CRM gets that notification sent out. This is just a bit not correctable. Yeah. What I wanted to say here is that CRM gets that notified that we have successful registered vendors, and then the process ends. So that's about the current and to be process of how we onboard our vendors. So I'm just going to hand over to Kachi, who will talk us through the procurement lifecycle. I will still be sharing my screen for him to carry on. I'm not sure if I was even opening my camera. Apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Odi, for that. Okay, so please can you make it bolder a little bit? Okay, for the procurement and life cycle, just like she said. So we have yeah, it's better. Thank you. So for the procurement life cycle, so from that subunit where the vendor is successful, so the procurement team starts. So we receive an internal request for procurement things to be procured, and the procurement team issues a request for proposal. So the next process is if they issue that request for proposal, the vendor will submit the proposal, and the proposal from the vendor is evaluated by the procurement team, and the next process is to select a vendor. If they select a vendor, they will now issue a request for quotation, and vendor will submit quotation. They will receive it and evaluate the quotation. Then they will also negotiate this. They will then negotiate the proposal. Now, if the proposal fails, the process returns back to issuing a new proposal, meaning that they will have to go through these steps again. But if the negotiation succeeds, then they will request for they will move on, and they will establish a contract. If a contract is established, the vendor will provide the services. Then the procurement team, the next process will be the procurement team will have to inspect and approve that service. Then they will make a payment. Then a record of that transaction is taken for audit purposes. This is the present state, and the process ends. So for the to-be state, the future state will be the procurement team, of course, starts. Then, thank you. The procurement team starts. The cycle starts with the procurement team. They receive an internal request, and they will call for submission of a proposal, submission of tender from the vendor. And sorry, let me say this at this point, because this is the future state. So we are introducing the CRM. Prior to now, most of these things were being done, you understand, manually. Those proposals that were being submitted, we are submitted as physical copy, but we want them to submit it now through the CRM. We want the vendors that we've onboarded to submit it through the CRM. So when they submit the request for tender, this CRM receives that request, and it sends a link to the vendor. Here, vendor submits a proposal, and the procurement team evaluates it. If they evaluate it and select a vendor, they will issue requests for negotiation. That's the CRM will notify these vendors. They will receive the notification to negotiate, and they will negotiate. Procurement team will negotiate the proposal. If the proposal fails, it will go back to the second process again. If it succeeds, they will establish what? A contract. The CRM will send out a contract form for the vendor to sign, and then the vendor will now sign and provide the services. When vendor provides services, procurement team will have to do what? Inspect and approve, then they will make a payment. The CRM here stores the payment record and a record of transaction for audit purposes. So what's changed here? Usually before now, the record of payment was stored manually. So the issues that we had is that sometimes during audit, we are not able to retrieve those things, the records properly, and we have audit issues. But right now we have a track on the system now being provided by the CRM, so where everybody can actually sit, and retrieval of payment is payment receipts is simple. So the process ends here. So right now I'll be handing over to Maria to take us through our JIRA. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So for the user stories, we just focused on what we want the CRM to do for us. We document this process in JIRA, but I'm just going to go through it on the Word document. So for the CRM, the first step is the ability for the CRM to submit a request for tender. And for this, the story is going to be, as a user, I want the CRM to receive a request for tender and then send the link to relevant vendors so that they can start preparing to submit the tenders. For this process, the acceptance criteria is going to be that the system shall receive a tender request from the procurement team, and the system shall send out the request link to relevant vendors. The assumption for this is that the procurement team has prepared a request for tender request, and the next one is going to be the CRM's ability to receive proposed tender. As a user, I want the CRM to receive and auto-assign the proposed tender to the procurement team so that the tender can be evaluated. The acceptance criteria for this is that the system shall receive proposed tender. The proposed tender is auto-assigned to the procurement team, and the vendors have prepared and are ready to submit a tender. That is the assumption for this. And the next story is the issue negotiation request. As a user, I want the CRM to issue a request for negotiation to selected vendors so that a negotiation process can be initiated with the procurement team. And the acceptance criteria is that the system, that's the CRM, sends a request for negotiation to the selected vendor. And the assumption for this is that the procurement team has evaluated the submitted proposals and they have selected a vendor. Or did you want to show it in JIRA, see what it looks like? Okay, so we just created a couple of epics, and then we just put some of the stories on there. It's going to be the same thing as what I just explained, but this is what it looks like in JIRA. Oops. Yeah, so it's the same thing that I just explained, and I think that's about it for our team on this project.
Okay, Maria, you have a smile on your face. I'm trying to figure out.
I just always smile for absolutely no reason.
Thank you for your presentation. You know, like for every group that has presented today, I can say it's definitely gotten better. We can all demonstrate that we understand what we're talking about here, and that if we were to be in an actual project environment, we will be able to perform, and that is great. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The maps were good. For your decision diamonds, you had a few gaps in there as well, but I already gave that feedback to group 2. So just go back and take a look at your diagrams and see where you might have a gap in terms of having a yes or a no come out of the decision Diamond. Okay. But overall, that was an excellent presentation. The narrative, the maps, you documenting your user stories in Word and then in Jira as well. Looks like we all have a hang of it. One thing I'll just quickly mention before the fourth group presents is that, again, I know I've said this severally and I'll say it again, this is a journey, right? The more you do it, I think somebody needs to mute. The more you do it, the more you write user stories, the more you write narratives, you have those stakeholder meetings and they're walking you through the process, whether it's a workshop, observation, whatever tool you use, right? And you're getting all that information and continue to map it out. You'll be amazed at how your skills would improve, right? You're already doing really well. And it's just been a few days with Visio and with Jira. Imagine 3 months from today, if you're consistent in using it, it can only get better. At the speed at which you're going, I mean, I'm impressed, That's all. I'll leave it there for now. Do we have the fourth group that will be presenting? And Odi, thank you for showing us a guest tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's my PA.
I think PA is tired. It's been a long day.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, group 4, are you ready? Do we have a fourth group presenting tonight? Oh, yeah. So I know there is a group that has asked to present tomorrow, but there should be one more group. Are you able to tell me who that group leader is?
Oh, yes, it's Olabisi. I know Olaide sent a message earlier, which we discussed.
Yes.
Olabisi's group also, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned, but it just came in like when we were talking about.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Abiola. I sent the message to her just before the class started to let you know that we were going to be, could we present tomorrow? And she was like, I have to let you know myself. We're so sorry, our presentation isn't ready and everyone in my group isn't available. I have 3 people that are actually ill and they asked that if we could present tomorrow, they'll make themselves available. So if we could present tomorrow, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, your presentation isn't ready and that's okay. Sorry to hear your team members aren't feeling well. I know that people have different things, they're juggling, family, work, and all of that, so it's a lot to pull together. Thank you for the teams that were able to do it, but for the teams that weren't able to do it, tomorrow is fine as well.
Thank you.
But extend our greetings to your team members. So we still have some time here. Why don't we all just have a chat? A few, this is general feedback, not particular to any group, right? One of the things, Visio has many capabilities, even when you're mapping out a process. Remember that when I showed it to you, I told you we're going to simplify. We're just starting, so we're not starting complicated, but as you use it, we continue to practice, right? There are more diagrams, there are more shapes that you can use. For example, if you were talking about as a part of the process, there's something that the application does, the application processes the request and does ABC, right? There is an actual icon for that. In fact, I'll quickly share my screen here. Thank you. Okay, can everybody see the Visio document that I have up?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I'm not going to do an actual mapping now. I just want to show you a few more things in Visio, right? Let's say that I think it was the second group that was talking about the application, the CRM, right? And one of the things the CRM did was it stored information, something along those lines, right? You can represent it with a database. This is the icon for database. And in here, you just put whatever it does, right? Process information. Okay. For example, that way, anybody who's looking at the map can, okay, this is a process that's done by the business and this is a technical thing done by the application. Okay. So you could just represent it by a database. That way, if let's say you have there's 5 different things that the system does, in between the start and the end of the process, and everywhere you put the shape for the database, they can easily just see, even without diving too deep into the map, that this is a human, this is an application. Okay, so the point there being that continue to practice with Jira. As you find the shapes, with Visio, as you find the shapes, start thinking, what is the use case for this shape? When we say the use case for something, in what case is it used? Where is it applicable? And the more you learn about the shapes and where to use what, you begin to map. You create more detailed and meaningful map. I mean, your map's already meaningful. I'm just saying, as you continue to grow your knowledge and get more comfortable with Visio, you'd find that there are many more shapes, that you could use to do your work. The other thing I wanted to mention is every time we talk about a process map, it isn't always from the standpoint of, we're implementing an application. It's not every time that you're going to be hired for an implementation. Sometimes you're going to be hired because they have a process within many different processes within the organization that they believe it can be leaner. It's too cumbersome right now, and there are too many gaps, right? It's not efficient. It is not lean. So we're hiring a BA who's going to analyze the current state and map out the future state. And the future state is not that we're implementing Salesforce or anything like that. We're just going to have a cleaner and a leaner future state where people can get their work done more efficiently. Just something to bear in mind, that every time you do a process map, it's not always because we're implementing a new application. It might just be that we're trying to figure out a better way of doing business today. The manual processes we do today, we're retaining them, but we're going to eliminate some of them because they do not add any value to the process. They don't add any value to the customer. They don't add any value to the employee, right? So they bring in a BA to do that analysis, basically. Okay. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Another thing I should quickly mention is that, you raise the hands. I'll get to it in a second. Another thing I wanted to mention is that in real life, a lot of what you've done tonight that was shared between group members, it will be just you for the most part doing it. Okay. So you had the luxury of working with your group members now, and that is fantastic. But in the future, from the user stories to the acceptance criteria, to the narrative, to the map, and a whole lot more that you'll be doing all by yourself. Of course, they're going to give you a reasonable timeline for the deliverables, and if they don't ask for it, right, but it will just be you for the most part. Just something to bear in mind there. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, I think it was Don who asked the other day, and I know that I brought this question up a few days ago, but I'll bring it up again. Why do we even do this mapping, right? Why do we do the mapping? It's almost like, think about it like you read the lyrics of a song, you read it out, and you listen to the actual music. There's a different feel to it. The music is the same. The wordings do not change. But the difference in between reading the lyrics and listening to the song being sung, that's the closest comparison that comes to my mind right now in terms of the narrative and the map. And so it is when you listen to the song that sometimes the meaning jumps out at you, right? Again, I said a comparison, it may not be like, 100% comparison, but just that's one of the reasons why mapping is very big. Organizations are very big on maps, right? Because that way they're able to, it's much easier to identify the gap. It's much easier to identify where the bottleneck is. When you have that shape in the middle of the map that you just have a gazillion arrows coming out of it and it looks like a nightmare, that will raise a red flag to you as the B, and you're like, tell me more about it. Tell me more about it. That's where you begin to find the gaps. You begin to find the inefficiencies, right? Because now that you've mapped it, you've seen that there is no natural flow to that part of the process. It just appears cumbersome, and people are confused when they get to that point, and that task takes forever, and oftentimes they don't find the resolution to it. And that's one of the things that would help you as a BA to know where to focus on more and ask more questions and try to get to the bottom of it, because as you unravel it, you begin to understand better what could be done in the future state to improve on the current state. Okay, just always remember to your narrative and then map based on the narrative. Okay, Odi, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Abiola. I just wanted you to just talk around the process improvement process. So is it like there will be like an automation expert for improving that process, or is just solely handled by the BA?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question. So when you say the automation part of what?
Okay, like the process flows is not just for implementing applications. You mentioned it's also around process improvement. And I believe this connects to standardizing process or probably automating to make it better, to lean it, just like the word you used. So I'm asking, is the BA going to be doing this absolutely, or we have another team, there will be another team that he or she will be liaising with to do this?
To do the automation part?
The standardization or the improvement part, everything as a whole. I'm just...
Yeah, okay. So there are many moving parts to what you've just asked, right? One of the main responsibilities of the BA in all of this is the documenting and analyzing it. There are people who would consume the information. So let's say, for example, they've hired you to do a current state documentation and analysis, and then to map out the future state, right? And the end goal is that they want to redesign how they do business, right? They're not necessarily implementing a new tool, but like the manual processes they have today, they feel like they could make it better. For them to be able to get to the next level they're trying to get to, they will need to do things differently. Now, in some situations, it plays out that to do it differently, you need to implement a tool. But in other places, it is not that you need to implement a tool. It is that right now you have this task that 3 people touch the task and then they move it on to the next 3, right? And the organization is beginning to question, well, our overhead is too high. Why do we have 3 people doing this task? Can we have just one person do it? Well, if one person is doing it, it's going to be work overload. So maybe we actually need to look at how the work is done, because if we streamlined it, maybe one person can actually do it. So they're not implementing a new tool to automate anything. It's just the actual business process they're trying to clean up. So if a BA does this type of documentation, typically it would go to like the manager of that department, because the person managing the department is the one who's going to implement the change. The key thing here is that when you get on that job, first, before you start running and trying to perform, have a full understanding of why they hired you. What is the goal of the project? Maybe it's automation. Maybe it's just process improvement that doesn't have automation involved. Maybe it's a combination of both. It could be anything. And all of this should be documented somewhere. Like, you as the BA should not have to guess. If they don't tell you, give you all of this information and you still have questions, keep asking until you know. And then that way you would know how to go about your documentation, who to meet with, who to talk with, and all of that. Once you provide, you've taken the time and you've done the documentation, you've done all that they've told you to document. I mean, you've been talking to stakeholders, right? You would know who the consumers are. You would know the people on the project team. If all of this is going to lead to the development team building something, well, you already know who the developers will build, the QA would be. Remember that the PM, the project manager, will be managing a lot of this. So the project manager is managing the overall plan of the project, right? And within the project, the BA has their task, developers have their task, change manager has their task, QA lead has their task, and everybody has their task, right? Figure out what you need to do. What are your deliverables? How you need to support other people, right? And then when you provide the deliverables, right, all of these conversations will be ongoing. At that time, you'd know who are the consumers of the document that you're providing. If it's you know, like I said, if a tool is going to be implemented, usually there'd be like a solution architect on the team, there'd be developers on the team, but it's not like everything's just going to stop at your feet and you need to figure out, okay, where does the project go to from here? Mm-hmm. That's not your place as the BA. Did I answer your question, Udi?
Yes, you did. Just a quick follow-up question.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Abiola. I just want to see if this is related to the Salesforce that we've learned so far, like the ecosystem, because I believe we are here to be a Salesforce BA. How does this integrate to each other?
Yeah, good question. Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to see how the process analysis or business process analysis relates to the Salesforce ecosystem that we are here for.
Yeah, okay. So at a high level, this is how to look at it. Let's say that you're hired, right, as a BA, the Salesforce BA in an organization that wants to implement the tool, right? They did not have the tool before. Maybe they had this other tool before, or they never even had a tool before, and now they want to implement a new tool, right?
Okay.
Now, when you think about it this way, let's say you were implementing Salesforce for them. How do you know what to enable for them and what not to enable? How do you know what to open up and what not to open up? How do you know the fields that they're going to need? How would you know all these different things? By doing the current state and understanding how they do business today. Because every organization uses Salesforce differently, and it's the same for any application out there. Hardly would you find two organizations that will take an application and implement it the exact same way. They usually tailor it to their own processes. Do you understand what I mean, Odi? Yeah. So it is in understanding how they do business today. What business do they do? What kind of customers do they have? What is their process for onboarding new customers today? And in finding out how they do it today, what are the issues that they're facing, which would be all the pain points, right? So when you understand all of that, which is the current state, we know that in the future, they want to be able to onboard new customers, right? They want to be able to do many of the things that they're doing today. They just want to be able to do it differently. Their business model hasn't changed. And for them to want to be implementing Salesforce, there must be something about the current state that they're not very happy about, or maybe they've identified an opportunity that they can leverage. Okay, so when you do the current state analysis, it will give you an understanding of what they do today and why they do it. And that's very important information for you to have. Otherwise, you're going to implement Salesforce for them in a way that is not going to meet their business need. Odi, do you understand my explanation?
Yes, I am following.
Yeah. So you do the current state, you understand how they do it today. Like I said, maybe they have a tool, maybe they don't have a tool. Doesn't really matter. Whatever the case, right? If it's manual, they don't have a tool, you're going to document it that way, right? They have a tool, you document it that way. The current state is the current state. You're not influencing it, you're just documenting it the way that it is, and you're finding all the pain points and all of that. And well, they decided they wanted to implement a tool, right? So they want more than they're getting today, right? You need to be able to capture all of that, which is the future state. How different will their processes look in the future state when they now have this visibility that Salesforce is going to provide to them that they didn't have in the current state, right? They don't know the tool. They don't know Salesforce. They haven't interfaced with it before. So when they're telling you about the future state that they've imagined, they're not going to tell you, oh, the lead, the opportunities. Maybe they will use those words, maybe not. And even if they use the word opportunity, it may not necessarily mean what opportunity means in Salesforce, right? But they're just going to tell you from their own point of view what they want the current state, the future state to be. And then you're going to document like you're going to elicit all of their requirements, right? A lot of those requirements, they're going to tell you as part of what they want in the future state. So you're going to do the map and you're going to do the user stories as well and the acceptance criteria. You know Salesforce, right? That's one of the reasons why they hired you. So you can already begin to imagine what that solution would look like. And as you're having those meetings with them, and they're telling you what their requirements are. Because you have a knowledge of that application and its capabilities, it will help you in formulating the questions that you're going to ask them. You're not going to throw Salesforce lingo at them because they don't know it necessarily, but it's going to help you in asking the right questions on what the future would look like. Yes. Remember that when you're working as a BA, right? Mm-hmm. People hire, like you could find a BA, senior BA roles online. Sometimes it would mention the name of an actual application that they want. They may say, oh, we're looking for a BA that has 7 years experience, and then they're looking for 1 year of Salesforce or 1 year of Kronos, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
They want you to have some application knowledge. Other times you're applying for a role and they're not even going to mention an application. I started a new BA gig where they didn't mention any application. They hired me because they think I've been working as a BA long enough that it doesn't matter that application you present me with, I'll figure it out. I'm like, I think these people have too much confidence in me. And I have to go learn this application, right? But my point being, not every BA role is going to state, that they want a pro in this application. And if it states it and you have it and you're applying, like in the case of Salesforce, right? It is only at that level, having that application knowledge to help you formulate the right questions, to help you with an understanding, the capabilities of the tool. Okay, but from the business standpoint, remember that the people who are approved the 1 million to implement Salesforce, they're different from the end users usually. The end users don't know what you know, but what you know is what's going to make your life easy as a BA when you're asking the questions.
Yes, thank you, Abiola. I want to believe this is based on the assumption that they would have an administrator, or I'm going to be doubling as both.
Well, you did hear Babskenki say yesterday that they gave him admin work. It's amazing what companies will make you do. Oftentimes, a role that they should hire 2 people for, they say they're hiring a BA and they'll give you more work. Like, I think that if they hire a BA, let the BA do BA work. But again, we can't control what these companies do. So like Babskenki's organization, they may ask you to do it, but should they be asking you to do it? Maybe not. From time to time, maybe okay, right? But all the time, they didn't hire an admin, right? But you know what I mean, right? It's fluid.
Yes.
But in fact, you mentioning this brings something to my mind. So I was doing the trail for Salesforce BA today, and every time they talked about the product backlog, they were talking about the BA. They didn't even mention product owner. But remember what we talked about in class, who grooms the product backlog? The product owner does it. But well, if there's no product owner, the BA is going to do it.
Yes.
Right? So you listen to 5 people and they tell you 5 things, right? Understand all of the 5 things. But what's going to help you is, what does the organization want, regardless of what anybody has said, right? You join a project, they don't have a product owner. You and the development team will end up prioritizing the backlog because there's no product owner. And then if you have a product owner, maybe the product owner will do that job. But if they hire a product owner and make the product owner do something completely different, well, the backlog still needs to be groomed, right?
Yeah.
But it was just interesting that from a Salesforce standpoint, they were making reference, like product owner was not even one of the options in the question.
Wow.
If you know what I mean. So to each organization its own, really.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Manuel.
Manuel, yep.
Thank you very much.
I had my hand up first.
Okay. All right.
Apologies, please.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of the chat has actually answered some of my questions, but I will still go ahead and ask anyways. So yeah, when you mentioned that, we should bear in mind that sometimes when you're hired as a BA, it's not necessarily to implement, a tool or something. So it makes me, wonder what all the possible tasks or responsibility a BA can be hired for. And like I said, we just mentioned a few, but yeah, if you want to, just give hints on, okay, even though you're looking at this, like this and this and these are the possible things that can come your way.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another. Okay, let me just let you answer that first.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, Tim Tokwe, if we started now, we wouldn't end tonight, and that's what I was just saying, that, the standard deliverables for a BA, the top of the list would be requirement elicitation and documentation, working directly to with the stakeholders, understanding what the business need is, understanding what their pain point is, and helping them on that journey to the future state. That really is your job as a BA, working with the development team to help them understand what the business is looking for. Basically, acting as that middle person in between business and the development team. That's how the concept of BA was actually came up, right? Because a long time ago, as the story goes, right, development, like developers and all, used to work directly with the business, but the solutions just were not what the business expected. So they needed somebody who understood the developers well enough, but also understood or understands the business well enough so that these two parties are not talking to one another. Business will tell BA what they want. BA will help them tell the developers. Developers will tell the BA what they worked on, and the BA will help them tell the business, right? That's what BAs were originally hired for. But now, a lot of organizations still let a BA just do their work. Sincerely, I'm doing this job right now where I'm purely a BA. I mean, I nudge the project manager sometimes if I feel like there's something I need to call his attention to, right? But I'm strictly a BA. They're not trying to get me to do change management. They're not trying to get me to do training, if you know what I mean, or the many different things. Yet you go to another organization and they want you to wear many hats, you know what I mean? So my recommendation, my advice is, any job you apply to and you get the job, try to have an understanding of what is required of you before you start trying to deliver. Okay, and if there's something they're asking you that is just so foreign to you as a BA, right, do your research. If this is not something you should be doing, respectfully communicate it to them and say, in the timeline that you have, right, it's just not enough time for you to deliver on your core duties as a BA and all the extras they're layering on top of it, and that you'd appreciate it if they pass it on to someone else. You're going to look for a nice way to say it, but yeah, that would be my advice. Because the problem is, if you take it on because you're trying to impress them, you're trying to look good, what would happen is that even on your task as a BA, you may not do excellent in it because there's just too many things going on, right? So you're better off doing well. At least they're going to be assessing you based on being a BA, and you come out an excellent BA, than being distracted with many other things that at the end of the day, even your BA work is mediocre. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can't really control these things. You're going to have to wait. I'll tell you though, when you begin to read job descriptions and they're beginning to ask for an arm and a leg, you can already tell that it's the job of 3 people they put into one. Know what you're getting into. If you choose to apply for it, you already have an idea of what that job would look like or what that job would feel like. Okay?
Yeah. So my other question will be that with Visio and the process mapping thing overall, besides just mapping out the current state, future state, or analyzing processes, what other things do you use the process mapping for?
Okay.
Maybe there might be other stuff other than this analyzing that you just found that, okay, mapping out this process or using Visio also helps me, like it's efficient if I actually use this. Yeah, maybe.
I would say that process mapping is really the main thing I use Visio for. There are other tools for other things, right? Like I wouldn't use Visio for like diagramming or mock-up. I would use the other tools. There's a tool called Balsamic, right? It's a very good tool for doing a mock-up. Like if you're trying to do a mock-up of an interface, what the landing page would look like. You're trying to show it to the business before the consultant configures it, right? There's a tool called Balsamic. My recommendation is that even for the Visio and Jira, for anybody who feels like they need to learn a bit more, go on YouTube, By the time you're done watching a 2-hour video on many of these tools, you'll be good. You'll be at a point where you can start. You can do it on the job. It won't be perfect, but you get better with practice. Okay. Bumi just mentioned another one, Figma. No, I was saying Balsamic for doing mock-ups. Odi, I think that was Odi. For wireframes, Balsamic, right? And Bumi mentioned Figma. There are just many tools out there. So again, my recommendation is when you're trying to apply for that job and they're like, they need this tool and that tool. Of all the 5 tools they mentioned, you know Jira, you know Visio. Just go on YouTube and watch a quick video on the other ones, right? But back to your question, Tim Tokwe, I use Visio primarily for process mapping. That's what I use it for. And for other things that I'm working on, I find the right tool. Especially, the question is, what tool does my organization use, right?
Yeah.
And I try to learn it. And that's how I've been able to learn all the tools, because I get to this organization, they're using this one. Then I get to the other one, they're using a different one. I mean, the functionality is not too different, but it's a different tool, right? Then I learned that one, and then when I'm learning that new one, I'm already forgetting the first one that I learned anyway. But anyway, that's how it goes, right? Yeah. So Visio for me primarily is for mapping.
Nice. Is it possible that on an interview, maybe something is not stated on their job ad? Maybe, they didn't say what software, what tool they require you, and then they ask you, okay, do you have an idea of this? And you genuinely don't know how to use that. So you just tell them.
Do you mean if they ask you on the job or they ask you during the interview?
Say maybe during the interview and they did not mention, like you said, you have an head start if the tool was actually being mentioned. You can actually just look at it and say, okay, you can figure out what to do before then, but on the spot, they're asking you, oh, do you use this? Do you have an idea? And you don't. So what do you advise?
Yeah, so this is not an advice, but this is what I think most people do. Most people will say they know how to use it, and once they get out of that interview, they get on YouTube. So pick your advice out of what I just told you, whatever advice you're picking from it, but that's what people would usually do. And then they learn that tool in between the interview and when they start the job.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean, Tim?
Sure, I do.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Medin said if you don't use it, you lose it. Exactly. It doesn't matter whether you've been working as a BA 10 years. You don't use a skill, you lose it. Yep, okay. Manuel, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I wouldn't want to waste so much of our time, and I do have to, but I'll restrict it to just one, question. So basically, people do talk about gap analysis, and I know you did mention something about that in one of the presentations. So now my question is, I just want to clarify this as well, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. When we're doing the current state and the future states, are we exactly doing a gap analysis at that point in time or not?
No, you're not. What you're doing is that your current state and your future state, the outcome of it is what you need for your gap analysis. So what is a gap analysis? The gap analysis is the difference between your current state. The gap is the difference in between your current state and your future state, which all the groups have done, right? What will it take you to get to the future state from your current state? Given that you've mapped both of them out, sometimes it is that you're going to implement a tool. When you implement the tool, you're going to hire 3 more people, you're going to fire 3 people, you're going to relocate the accounting department to the topmost floor for security reasons. There are many different things that need to happen to get from the current state to the future state. What are those things? That is what you begin to analyze. How do we achieve it? What is the impact? How different is it going to make the future look? That is the gap analysis that you're doing. But you can't do the gap analysis until you have the current and the future. So in fact, the bulk of the work is done. What will take most of your time is actually the current state. That is the most time consuming. Right? Because once you have the current state, most of your future state is going to come from the current state, especially if they have processes that they're going to reuse, right? And then maybe they would eliminate some of them. They'll fix all the parts of the process that have pain points in it, right? But the current state is what will take most of the work. And then when you have the current state and the future state, you can already tell the gap by reading both. The gap analysis is basically, what does this gap mean? To fix the gap, what do we need to do? What is there something that needs to change from a workforce standpoint? Is there something that we need to consider from a regulatory standpoint? Okay. Will there be changes to our workforce? Remember how I talked about when I worked at the insurance company and we're going all out for automation, right? Well, there was a part of our workforce that we didn't need anymore. What did we do? The organization presented early retirement to them. Early retirement will cost the organization some money, but we knew we were going to save money by just retiring them. Right? So those are the many, all of this example that I just gave you, basically, right? That was, we identified all of this because we analyzed that gap. Like, to get from point B, to get to point B from point A, these are all the different things that need to happen. What impact is it going to have? What cost is it going to bring? Are we going to get any savings from it? And analyzing all of that, that is the actual gap analysis that you're doing.
Okay, so and at the end of the day, just to document the, in the form of documentation, the gap analysis
from a BA standpoint, your job is to document. When you're done doing the documentation and the company says, you know what, we don't even want to do this project anymore, that documentation you created becomes an artifact with them, and as long as they've paid you your money, they can do whatever they want to do with that documentation. But that is your job as a BA. Now, if they choose to go forward with the implementation, because you're the one with the most information about the project. At this point where you started, you didn't know anything about the process, but as you met with stakeholders and you're doing current state and future state and gap analysis, even you become an authority on the subject. And that's when everybody's calling your name. They don't want to have a meeting without Manuel. They're looking at Manuel's calendar. Oh, I don't want to have this chat if Manuel is not there. Because over this long period, you become that person that everybody just thinks. So you better know the answer, because they're going to think you know the answer anyway. But if you don't, tell them you get back to them. Exactly. I go into meetings today and I don't know the answer they're looking for, and I confidently tell them, is it okay for me to get back to you on it? You know, and you should be comfortable doing that too. Just that you can't be saying that all the time, right? Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Did I answer your question, Manuel?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, done. Don, go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Yes. Hi. So I wanted to ask, I don't know if I'm taking you guys back with this, but I wanted to ask about the mind mapping thing. I think I brought it up before, but I didn't follow up with you. I think you went over it briefly, but I have a question about it. Is it possible for you to show us an example of how you would use it? Because I feel like I understand the general idea of it, but I don't understand how I would start off with it.
Okay. So I won't be able to bring up the slide anyway, because I can't even recall what lesson that is, right? But the idea behind the mind map is, so you as a BA, you're trying to gain an understanding of the different components of a process, right? You don't know anything about the process. All you know is that you're meeting with a stakeholder and you want to dive deeper into the different components of that process, right? You're not going into too much detail about the components now. You just want to identify it. Okay, you just want to identify it at this point. It's almost like you're cooking. Depending on the dish that you're cooking, there are different things that will go into it. At this point, we're not talking about how you're going to combine it. We want to know what goes into it. You're going to need salt, you're going to need Maggi, you're going to need curry, you're going to need thyme. You're going to need a pot to cook it in. You're going to need a cooker to put the pot on. You're going to need a spoon to stir it. Maybe you're making sauce, right? Or if you're making salad, right? You're going to need this vegetable and you're going to need that vegetable, right? So if, let's say that you were talking to a chef and they wanted to tell you all the different things that will go, how to make a salad, right? How to get ready to make a salad. Before they tell you how to combine it, first they have to tell you all the different things that go into it, because otherwise you're going to have like an incomplete salad at the end of the day. And it's the same approach when you're talking to the business. You want to find out about a process, right? I had a meeting with another BA on a job today and a PM. And I called the meeting because I said to them, we've been pulled into a few meetings, right? We have the executive director and the director, and they're just talking about all these many different things. And I'm like, okay, as the BAs, we need to rein it in. What is the scope of this conversation? Because they're pulling us into this meeting with this manager, and this manager says something that has nothing to do with the other person, right? So I'm like, for me, I'm wearing my BA hat. I'm saying, what are the different components to this work that we're going to do? I'm not doing a deep dive at this point. I just want to know the different components, right? So let's bring it back to, and the reason I wanted that is that once I start diving deep, I want to put myself in a situation where I take component one, I finish the work, and I move on to the next component, and I move on to the next one. If I didn't know there was a total of 20 and I'm done 15 and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Good job, Abiola, you're done. Well, I just missed 5 of it, if you know what I mean. So that's why I need to know all the different components. So if we bring it back to the mind map, right? I think the one that I showed you, the inner circle was sport. This conversation is about sport. And then you say, okay, what are the different type of sports, right? And they say water sports, track sport, this sport, and they tell you the different types of sport. And then you take water sport. What are the different types of water sport? There's swimming, there's water hockey, there's probably nothing called water hockey. I just did that up. And they tell you all of that, right? And so bring it to a project environment. You meet with the accounting manager. You want to document, you want to do a current state analysis of all of the processes in accounting, right? First, one of the first questions you're going to ask as a BA is, what are the different processes you have in accounting? So the entire organization's name is called Organization ABC. In Organization ABC, they have 10 different departments. Find out what the 10 different departments are. Then you take department 1 and say, what are the 15, how many processes do you have here? They say 15. Itemize all 15 of them. Then you take number 1 and say, let's now walk through process 1. And then you do the same for process 2. And you've completed the 15 for accounting. The second department you were told about is finance. And then you do for finance as well. Mind mapping is just a way of you start at this point and you blow it out till you cover the entire scope of what you're doing. But by blowing it out that way, you've identified at a high level all the different things that you need to cover. And then you begin to pick it one at a time and tackle it. Does that make sense, Don? Does it help with your understanding?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, are there any other questions tonight? If there's none, well, thanks again, everyone, for your time. You know, we're almost there. 2 more days. Tomorrow, we'll take the other 2 presentations. I'd appreciate it if there can be 1 or 2 interview questions for me tomorrow. But apart from interview questions, I want you to come with real questions about the job, right? Ask me questions about project. Ask me questions about negotiating salary. Ask me questions about, should I be targeting a senior B or should I be targeting intermediates? Ask me those real life questions, the ones that matter to you anyway. I would like to be able to answer them. Hopefully that would help you, in your journey, in this journey that you're working. Otherwise, if there are no more questions, have a good night, everybody. Oh, Tengu said water hockey exists. Okay, so I didn't make it up. Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you for letting me know, Tengu. Have a good night, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Abiola.
Thanks, Abiola. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Abiola. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.